Hey, folks, welcome back to Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. I am Cliff Schechter. I'm along with my favorite co-host, David Schuster. We are...
Nice to be with you. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. How did I miss that? One of these days, we'll get the whole thing right. Doing it live. We do this thing every week. We are what we call assholes for freedom, which means we will fight to get to the truth, and we will fight fascists. And I got to do some of that on Tuesday night at this awesome State of the Swamp event in DC, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's some fantastic folks there. Sadly, David could not make it because David, David's got a ton of stuff going on in his life.
Stuff going on. A lot of snow.
But he is an Emmy Award winner, as you may know.
Cliff, there are some new allegations in the Epstein files that are resurfacing and are prompting some Democrats to ask Attorney General Pam Bondi if Donald Trump is under Justice Department investigation. And the reason Democrats are doing that is because the Justice Department has been caught withholding several files related to allegations that Donald Trump raped a woman when she was a minor in the 1980s. These are FBI summaries that the Department of Justice listed in essentially an index, but didn't actually put the summaries in there. So people were able to figure out, oh, they're holding certain things back. The only reason the Department of Justice under the law is allowed to hold things back is if it identifies a victim, if it duplicates other materials, or if it's part of an active ongoing investigation. So Democrats are saying, oh, are you not releasing this because you are investigating Donald Trump? Or the alternative is Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice not releasing these materials because they're trying to protect Donald Trump?
That is the question, because as you said, Robert Garcia, congressman, who's been tough on Republicans, one of the ones we love, we'd love to have his leader and be a spokesperson. He hits hard. He came out and quite clearly said that. And I, not being a lawyer, was not aware that. So you said there really are three options here. I mean, I guess the fourth option is they just all break the law massively. But just the fact that in general, there may be a chance that he is actually being investigated, because that would be one of the reasons you wouldn't release them. That's as Joe Biden once said, a big fucking deal. And
this is now what's amazed me, Cliff, is this is now broken through to the mainstream media, right? I mean, this started with a Substack, with some journalists on Substack who made this discovery. Then it got picked up by PBS, then the mainstream media, and now it's on the front page. Well, at least as of yesterday, last night, it made it to the front page of the New York Times, and I want to read this for you. Headline: Epstein files are missing records about woman who made claim against Trump. Quote: this is the first two paragraphs of the story. The vast trove of documents released by the Justice Department from its investigation into the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein failed to include some key materials related to a woman who made an accusation against President Trump, according to a review by the New York Times. The materials are FBI memos summarizing interviews the Bureau did in connection to claims made in 2019 by a woman who came forward after Mr. Epstein's arrest to say she had been sexually assaulted by both Mr. Trump and the financier decades earlier when she was a minor. That's like a cleaned up way of saying she was raped as a child.
Right. Which is disgusting, because what they should say is she was raped as a child. I mean, there's language that
alleges that she was raped. I mean, whatever,
say she makes the claim, or she
thing that the New York Times did. But at least the New York Times, the mainstream media, this is now front and center. It's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. We knew that there were files of this sort in there. There've been others that had pictures of him with younger girls, allegedly. I haven't seen them myself. Oh, we're getting cheering here, which is awesome, because there should be for this.
And Cliff, to your point, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, this isn't sort of a one-off incident. At least for those of us who've been following this, right? I mean, this is according to the experts and the people who've been following this. This is separate. This Jane Doe who made this accusation is a different Jane Doe than Katie Johnson. Katie Johnson was the woman who was thinking about suing Donald Trump right up before 2016. She alleged that Donald Trump raped her when she was an underage teenage girl. She had Lisa Bloom as her attorney. She was ready to file a lawsuit. And then in 2016, she decided to, for whatever reason, she decided not to file her lawsuit. So that's the second person that Donald Trump has allegedly raped as a young teenager. And then there's another one. There's a third that's already come out of the Epstein files involving, you may be familiar with the story of the limo driver. A limo driver,
Yep.
heard Donald Trump talking about a woman. Then the limo driver actually met the woman and heard from her and was so disgusted by her depiction of Donald Trump allegedly raping her and threatening to kill her. So again, by my count, that's three
Yep.
that we know of.
I mean, and again, it fits the pattern. I apologize to folks. I had not hit a couple buttons just to send out some promotions for this, so I was working on that. But I mean, David and I talked about this before the show, and we have been looking through this and talking about it because, algorithms work because humans have patterned behavior. There are people that will shock you and completely change who they are and what they do. But the fact of the matter is, for the most part, is we are creatures of habit. And sadly, in some cases, creature is the right word to use. And in Donald Trump, I mean, when you look at that, when you look at how he sexualized his young daughter and, was willing to first of all, in all sorts of poses that were weird and creepy, but, allow Howard Stern, go on Howard Stern's show and joke around that people could call her a quote piece of ass. When you look at the fact that, there was that video of him actually with his daughter, I believe, with Ivanka, and a young girl walked by and he said, I'll be dating her in 10 years, which actually in his case may have been a longer period than true. And of course, the final one, the really big one, is he constantly bragged about how one of the benefits of owning these beauty pageants, which is where a lot of this activity was going on, sadly, around beauty pageants, around modeling firms, like, they would bring in and exploit these women from other countries, from here. It's just disgusting. He would brag about going in and peeking in on 14 and 15-year-old girls. I'm sorry. At some point when something completely fits the pattern, you have to start being obtuse to not see it. So yes, it's still alleged. I can't say definitively. What I can say is everything that in this accusation, as you point out, fits two other accusations and things Donald Trump has said himself.
And Donald Trump says now, all of these materials, they totally exonerate me. Well, let's just take that. Let's just suppose, for argument's sake, and this is crazy, let's just suppose that there were documents or that these documents did exonerate Donald Trump.
Right.
He is still breaking the law by withholding the documents, by the Department of Justice withholding these materials, more than 50 pages, according to NPR and the New York Times and several other news organizations, and millions of files
Right.
and photographs and videos that have still not been released. By withholding these materials, the criminal cover-up. This is a criminal cover-up because under the law that Congress passed and Donald Trump signed, they had to release everything. The only thing that could not be released were the names of the victims. That's all that could be redacted or blacked out.
Of course, and that's the only thing they made sure to release.
Yeah, they screwed that up as well by naming all sorts of victims against the rules and violated privacy laws. But
that was revenge. I mean, let's be honest here. Like that felt a lot like revenge porn, quite seriously, to me. And again, that's alleged. I can't say for sure because they are incompetent as hell. But it is interesting that they took the time to redact the names of those they cared about. And it was just the victims and others whose names were.
And I should add the caveat that, in addition, the other thing that they were allowed to redact under the laws, which we started the show, is yes, redact the victims' names. You can redact things that are duplicitous or repeat several times, which you've already released. And if there is an ongoing investigation into somebody, then you can redact those names. But does that mean the Department of Justice has, they've redacted, names of dozens of Trump, Epstein friends and associates. The Department of Justice couldn't possibly be investigating all of them or any of them, it seems. So to me, this is to Robert Garcia's question. This is either the Department of Justice needs to admit it is investigating Donald Trump, and that's why these materials have been redacted, or the Department of Justice has engaged in a criminal cover-up. One of those two. That's it.
Right. And look, the fact that we even have to ask these questions, I'm not saying there haven't been abuses in the past, and I'm not saying we know there have been. I mean, again, like so much else, it's sort of like the way I shared that figure the other day, and I like to keep sharing it, how 97% of jobs the last 35 years have been created under Democrats, just because trickle-down economics is a joke. Much in the same way, ethics, you look and you see like under Barack Obama, there were like literally I mean, were there none or a couple who were convicted and indicted, convicted under Bill Clinton? There were maybe 10 or 12 or 8 or whatever. And then you see like George W. Bush, and it's like in the I don't even know if it gets into triple digits, but it's at least in very high double digits. And Donald Trump, it's like through the roof. So this them committing a criminal cover up is sort of par for the course. It's what these, he brought these people in because they're criminals in the same manner. I mean, I'm sorry, alleged criminals, right? Because Pete Hegseth settled the case. I don't know why Christy Nome, I mean, there is animal cruelty, and shooting a dog in the head she'd not be found held responsible for that. But again, these people don't seem to get held responsible for anything. Pam Bondi was involved in a illegal campaign contribution. She sought from Donald Trump and got from his, I think it was he gave from his foundation a 501c3 tax free. That's illegal, and he should have been held responsible. I'm sure they, paid a little fine or nothing at all, and FCC did nothing, right? Or FEC did nothing. I mean, again, these people are there because they're, let's call them, morally flexible, and by that I mean they're assholes, but not for freedom.
And I would argue, Cliff, that, and I think you agree, that there's something about the GOP and its culture now. There's a pattern here, because put aside Donald Trump and his cronies, if you look at who's leading the Texas Republican Senate primary right now, who's beating John Cornyn, Ken Paxton, who was investigated, who was impeached for ethics violations, campaign finance violations. He cheated on his wife, allegedly, got divorced. So there's that. And if you want to stay in Texas, there's the Congressman Tony Gonzalez, I think Texas's 23rd congressional district, part of San Antonio. He's a Republican who text messages indicate that he was having an affair with one of his staffers, and that staffer then committed suicide. And so Tony Gonzalez is like, oh, I don't believe this. And there are Republicans. Look, there's some Republicans, Tom Massey, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, who are saying this guy needs to resign immediately. But if you look at the leadership,
right,
House Speaker Mike Johnson, well, it's despicable, but we need to let this play out. What is there to play out? And this culture of, well, let's just let things go. We need to maintain our power. We need to have a full investigation. These are just claims. I mean, to me, it's sick.
You wouldn't do that if it were your kids, not you being you, David. Although, yes, you being you and me being me, but you'd be breaking through walls, and you'd be doing whatever it took to get to the people that did this. Quite honestly, many of us would probably have to be held back. And yet the ability of these people to just sort of look at those who are victims, those who are injured, as objects.
Yes.
You think of Virginia Giuffre, who I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I think of her with the suicide, and the alleged, Dershowitz, and I don't know if Wexner was in that one, but we need to have Ellie here to give us I mean, it's a sick sort of chart of which of these sick fucks, frankly, were involved with whom and in what ways. But you're staying in Texas there. I mean, Paxton is a despicable creature, and as you pointed out, they don't care about that stuff. You point out Tony Gonzalez. Well, you might want to come back here to Ohio, where we literally, the crux of this, the investigation going on still, Ohio State, we talked about this last week, and I know that you'd love nice things we say about Ohio State, being sued by, over the Richard Strauss's doctor that raped wrestlers, that, Jim Jordan, who was a wrestling coach, says, oh, I didn't know that was going on. Well, one of his fellow wrestling coaches, as well as a referee, as well as 3 to 4 wrestlers at this point, one who testified while he's almost tearing up in front of the Ohio State House about how Jim Jordan had called his brother. He meant not brother like somebody he's close with, his actual blood brother who was on the team too, begging him, pleading him. These are the words he was using, not to say anything, crying about it, which you can imagine because Jim Jordan's a little fucking wimp, but like that he's, that that this is all right there, and reasons I can't explain. There's never been that I understand a serious investigation into what Jim Jordan knew and didn't know when he's a sitting member of Congress. And now Les Wexner, who gave tons of money to Ohio State because he's a graduate and he's in Columbus, who has been implicated in the Epstein files with young girls and literally the only one to give power of attorney to for his money to Epstein. That's how insanely close he was. Well, you've got both this in that case, you've got they're trying to take Wexner's name down off of buildings, and you have former president of the university who seems to have to leave every university he goes to for scandal. I don't even know how to pronounce his stupid last name. You might, Gordon Gee or whatever, who was like, "Oh, this is just cancel culture." No, it's stopping rapists, you asshole. And maybe you don't care about that. But the fact that this guy has been a president of Ohio State, twice Vanderbilt, West Virginia, I think University, whatever, and that's his attitude when he finds this out. So you've got this whole thing. You also have a professor there who is getting direct payments from Epstein at Ohio State, right? So Wexner's supporting them. This professor is there. Epstein is supporting Wexner. Epstein's supporting this professor. And now in the Richard Strauss case, a judge, they refused to quash a subpoena for Wexner to show up and to testify in the Strauss case. In other words, these two separate horrific pedophilia scandals may be linked, and who did we have chairing the committee when, when they were all arguing, when Pam Bondi was doing her whole Mean Girls act and pretending like she knew what she's doing? Jim Jordan is the one with the gavel. Like, you can't make this up. And John Husted, our current, lieutenant governor, who's been our secretary of state here and suppressed God knows how many votes and was in the state house when all that was going on at Ohio State and didn't do a damn thing and has never questioned any of it, has accepted in the past over $100,000 from Les Wexner, including last year after his name came out as being in there. So as bad as they are in Texas, we may have them beat. Literally, a mayor or a state rep who's a Trumper just got arrested for sniffing women's panties. I'm not even kidding you. This was a story here.
This is the one, and it was like sniffing a relative's panties, I think. Right?
Let's see. I have to look this up because we have to get this right, because this is insane. Richland County mayor charged with voyeurism after allegedly sniffing teen girl's underwear. Teen girl. Again, what we're talking about here. The sheriff's office was contacted by Richland County Children's Services after the office was sent, quote, a video showing an adult male going through a child's bedroom, picking up her underwear and smelling it. This guy, of course, is a huge MAGA guy and a big Trumper, was on one of the committees here for Trump. I mean, like, where does this shit end? With these people.
And the theme that goes through all of this, the couple of threads that go through all of this. First of all, I mean, the party of family values. I mean,
what a joke.
Your niece's underwear, that's pretty bizarre and pretty sick. Tony Gonzalez, he's married with 6 kids, devout Catholic, he says, all about family values. And he was having an affair allegedly with his staffer who committed suicide. And now he doesn't want to talk about it or is trying to sort of cover it up. So that's the first thread. There's the hypocrisy in terms of their action. But I think the other part of the thread is that famous Watergate quote, it's not the crime, it's the cover up. And there is such a strong effort in every one of these incidents and stories by Republicans, by the people involved, to try to cover it up, to hide files, to not answer questions, to ignore it if you're Jim Jordan. And to me, that's, in some ways, perhaps even more reprehensible, because you can't get closure on these scandals until people are willing to be held accountable and willing to stand up like a human being and say, yeah, okay, this is what happened. Here are the facts. And as long as people are trying to hide the facts, this stuff lingers.
And again, these people think, Donald Trump's whole strategy, his entire life, which, he learned from Roy Cohn, and, a lot of other Republicans employ this too. They did that here in Ohio also, to not follow the Supreme Court and illegally gerrymander, quite literally ignoring the Ohio Supreme Court in the way that Donald Trump just ignored the U.S. Supreme Court. If anybody wants to wonder, how that these things are just a Trump thing, or it's an entire cult right-wing party. But what Donald Trump's done his whole life, and what they did in this Supreme Court case here, is they ran the clock out. And that's what they try to do with all of these things. They just keep filing counter motions. They just keep, appealing to the next court. They just, I mean, in the end, it's never, the point is to just drag it out forever to the people on the other side either give up or you've threatened them enough, or somebody dies, whether, I mean, again, I'm not going to say that they were involved in it, but whether life happens or something else, and whether they're, on a fifth floor hotel and Vladimir Putin's in town. I mean, in the end, that's what they do here. So instead of actually having, standing up and saying what's right, this is what they'll do. So again, it does make you wonder, but it still is incredibly interesting that there is a non-zero chance that they are actually, because maybe there's some people in the Justice Department who don't have the names that we know, still do their jobs and haven't been fired yet, are actually investigating this.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and that, to me, new respect for folks like Tom Massey, who, if you would have asked me a year and a half ago, I would have said he's one of the most atrocious Republicans in Congress. Well, it turns out that, I disagree with him on 99% of the policies still, but this is a guy who is standing up for the victims and demanding accountability and transparency truly in the Epstein scandal. And so, good for him. And he's one of the 3 Republicans in Congress who said that Tony Gonzalez should resign. Well, if Republicans lose another seat in the U.S. House, the Democrats get the gavel. They take control. And Massey knows this, and Lauren Boebert knows this, and Nancy Mason, yet they're willing to say, hey, there are some things that are more important than political power.
And I agree. And I've really, spoken out because, man, I used to hate Massey with a passion. Yep. I mean, he took what I called the Manson family Christmas card picture with all the kids with like assault rifles. Oh, I mean, where you're like, hi, we're the Taliban. Oh, no, that's in America. Yeah. And, I saw him at the airport once, and he's talking to Rob Portman on the way back here. I swear I wanted to say things to both, and I probably should have. But no, to me, I mean, in the end, when it comes to these folks, the only question I would ask, because I do think Massey, maybe they feel like he's doing more good staying on the Republican side, and saying, so he and Ro Khanna, and in other cases, there's bipartisan support for some of these things. But if a few of these people would just I mean, I don't know if they can do, I know in the Senate, you can caucus with neither side, right? If a few of them would just caucus with neither side, I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, I guess at this point, I lost track of time. Marjorie Taylor Greene is gone, doing whatever she's doing out there. But Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, who also I don't like in a lot of other ways, but has demanded all of this stuff and keeps, I mean, if 2 of them were to, what is it, 2 at this point? I don't know how many were to go and just caucus independently or something of that nature. Couldn't we then get to having, having a Democratic House? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, if they really believe that this is the damage that and I'm not trying to be critical because I get it. What Massey's already done is a huge deal. But if they do believe it, what he's doing every second he's there, how damaging it is. And Massey also, of course, is opposed him on Venezuela and the War Powers Act and the right to when to bomb other countries. And we are right now in the process of potentially starting another one of those wars, bombing another country. I mean, there have to be 3 or 4 of these. If he wants the Epstein files out there, us not to bomb Iran, right? And if just a few of these, he's come out against what ICE is doing because he is, as a libertarian, believes, law enforcement, this crazy constitutional notion, they should fucking identify themselves and not have masks on like they're robbing a bank and like in a 19 or 1850s movie or something and that kind of thing. I mean, if those are all really big to Massey, I just wonder why he won't just take that extra step, honestly.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, he would have to, state publicly and sort of be under the spotlight. But if you look at, I mean, there are plenty of Republicans who are willing to state publicly the other direction. And I'm thinking of Troy Niels, the congressman from Texas, the 22nd district. He was asked about Gonzalez. And he was asked, I think, by CNN's Manu Raju, aren't there some things that are more important than politics? And because Niels has been talking about the control of the gavel and who controls the House. And he said, no. There are right. Whoever controls the House, that is more important than anything. He said this on camera. It's like, what? I mean,
insane. So
there's some members of Congress who are like, it's for power reasons. I'm not going to call on Gonzalez, but I'm not going to state that publicly. This is a guy who's willing to state publicly, yes, there
yeah,
are some things, and Republicans maintaining control of the House, that is more important than whether a member of Congress had an affair and cheated on his wife and with a staffer, and the staffer committed suicide. That doesn't matter.
I just never. This is the stuff I can't get, is that they can't. We all have to be professionals about certain things, and we work on things. You did as a reporter, I did in PR, particularly when it's international affairs, when things that people call collateral damage means people die, right? And I always would try to sort of, I have to think in one way, but when I am trying to decide what I stand for and what I will fight for, you think of these people as individuals. They are not statistics. That was the old Lenin or Stalin line. Like, one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. You need to humanize who they are. And so Tony Gonzalez, a young woman who is living her life, who we don't know what she would have been. We don't know what, promise she had for the future. What we do know is this father of 6 who claims to be religious and many other things had an affair with her, did whatever it was, in breaking this up or whatever happened. I'm not claiming it's all him. There's other factors, but it couldn't have happened without him. And she is now dead. Everything she ever was or ever was going to be is now gone. And that's somebody's daughter. And if our media would just fucking put this in those terms, which is, these are human beings, as I said, Virginia Giuffre, again, I apologize. She was a human being. These are not statistics. These people that show up in the Epstein files, they're people. They were young girls, and some of them now, due to suicide, are dead. How can you not just be so outraged? Like, what did you get into this stuff for? Are you all sociopaths? Because oh no, we may lose the House. I don't know. I don't know what else to say, because clearly maybe nothing else does matter to them.
Well, I don't want to change subjects per se, but I was on vacation last week. We had a whole bunch of snow days.
Can I say something? One quick thing first, because I forgot. Kazem is joining us. Rashid is going to be joining us as a guest at the 30 point, I believe. So he's not here yet, but we will have Kazem joining us, and we'll talk about some of this stuff. Talk about your vacation, David. We need it.
Well, I was just going to say, because I haven't really had a chance to talk for a week and a half because I was on vacation, and then we had snow days this week that kids were off school, and so Claude, I haven't asked you, but you were in D.C. Tuesday night for sort of the alternative State of the Union. First of all, tell me more about it. What was it like? And what was your impression of how Trump did with his official State of the Union?
Hey, Lawrence, do you have a picture of some of us there you can share? That is, sorry, go ahead, David.
I say I recognize Ellie Leonard and Lev Parnas and Cliff Schecter and Joe Walsh, and I have my glasses for the woman.
Although that's not Lev. Lev Parnas was there, and he's awesome. I got to meet him. We bonded on, I'm a quarter Jewish from Odessa. So we had some conversation about my grandfather coming over here on the boat, but it's Ellie, Brian Karam, Goofy me in the middle, then Joe Walsh, and then Helen Miller Walsh, his wife. And that's just one. There's other pictures that I have, but I thought that'd be a fun picture to kind of show, of what it was like. Here's what it was like. First of all, we were mocking them. And the point is, Miles Taylor, who we had in this show, what he gets about all of this, kind of like what we get, is there's nothing that makes your opposition look weaker than when you mock them. And Donald Trump is so easily mockable for all the ridiculous things about him, the way he dresses, the way he looks, what he says, and everything. And yes, he does horrible things, but you need to mock him. So the Frog Brigade that mocked him from Portland showed up, and there were lots of folks who were in frog outfits. And so what I like to point out is, what do you call a gathering of frogs? You call it an army. And that is what we were there. Not an army of violence, but we were united. It was amazing to meet some of these people for the first time, I'd never met Joe in person before. I mean, these are the relationships we have. I'd never met Ellie in person. I had met Brian once or twice at different things. But I mean,
so a collection of progressives, and who put this together?
So Miles Taylor's group, defiance.org, put it together, along with Tara McGowan's group, Courier Journal, that has publications where they've hired journalists who've lost their jobs in key swing states because they've shut down newspapers, and just not propaganda like the right, but just had them tell real stories and actually be fair and not sort of hide behind, fake objectivity. And they were there. But I mean, they helped hold it. But like, I got to sit down with John Tester at one point. He's everything you would think. They're showing you. He's missing his 3 fingers from the combine. He was a real farmer. It's why he overperformed the top of the ticket by something like 13 points and still lost and couldn't win, because we have not done enough on the ground and in Montana, where there are a lot of winnable voters for us who are more libertarian in nature. And John Tester was just hilarious. I got to sit down and meet Lev Parnas, who's just a fantastic guy who was hilarious. We were all just sort of, at one point, I was standing there trying to buy a drink, and damn it, we had him on, was it last week? Kurt Bardella walks up. And I don't know if you know JoJo from Jers, who was there.
Jersey, yeah.
Yeah. JoJo didn't have money for a drink, so she was like, I need to, and so Kurt was like, we're gentlemen here. We'll help you out. Cliff's rich; he'll buy it for you. That son of a. And so Kurt was hilarious, but the speeches too. Steve Schmidt, I give credit, gave a speech which recalled back to history, which was excellent. Joe Walsh's speech, I think we need to cue that one up right now, Lawrence. If you're listening.
I want everybody, and I apologize for my language, but I want everybody to repeat after me.
Fuck him!
First? Careful, we've got cameras. I want you to repeat after me as loud as you can. I apologize, but you know what? I don't apologize. This is an unprecedented moment. So, repeat after me. Not yet. Fuck Trump. The midterms are happening. Ready?
And everybody repeated it, screamed, cheered for. I mean,
that's awesome.
Joe gave it would make you look at the Republican Party right now and be like, God, you people are stupid. Because Joe, look, he's somebody I disagree with. He believes in universal background checks, but he doesn't believe in an assault weapons ban. He believes in that abortion rights should be left to the states. There are a number, but that states right now that are trying to do end runs around it are committing, breaking the law, should be held responsible again. And then there's things he's come to our side on where we agree more. Joe would not be, Joe is still basically conservative. And that's why, to me, the GOP is insane, because here is this guy who, I mean, he has so much charisma. And by the way, folks, 6 p.m. tonight, Tequila Talk. Joe and I will be drinking, and I'll probably be showing that speech over and over again. I mean, of all the speeches, it's hard to say that anybody gave a better speech than Robert De Niro, because Robert De Niro is Robert De Niro. So he just showed up and just, Robert De Niro could have said nothing. Just the gravitas in the room. I didn't get to meet him. It would have been nice. It would have been nice to, but I didn't. I can't claim that. But just the gravitas that he brings and went after him. So his speech was amazing. Otherwise, Joe's was incredible. Steve Schmidt gave a great one. We had panels. Jim Acosta was hosting one with a number of folks on media and democracy. I mean, it's just like, imagine all these folks that you feel like you really do feel like you're in an army with, you're in trenches with. Who
is that the National Press Club? Is that right?
It was at the National Press Club, who are willing. I mean, Mehdi Hassan showed up, and like at this point, I looked and was told this was the case. I talked to Mehdi for a bit, but then I was told this was the case by somebody else. Mehdi has to go on with a bodyguard because he's gotten so many death threats because of Trump. I mean,
so while you guys are having this remarkable gathering and the defiance and the opposition, everybody's sort of coming together, 15 blocks away at the same point, there is Donald Trump getting increasingly agitated
Yep.
because he's asking Democrats to stand every few minutes, and the Democrats won't stand when Trump says the first duty is to protect Americans. And I'm thinking, no. The first duty of the U.S. government is to protect and defend the Constitution. But anyway, Donald Trump is mad that Democrats won't stand. And he says, you people are crazy. People are
Right.
sick, getting angrier and angrier. I literally thought that Donald Trump was going to have a stroke.
I think it'd be like one of those movies where he might actually just explode.
Yeah. And
which
so
would be
I
hilarious.
thought,
Again,
Trump came
for all you
across.
think I'm wishing harm on him, I'm not, because I don't do that. But like if he could explode and then sort of be a person again, I would very much root for just watching him explode, because it would be like seeing Jabba the Hutt explode. I mean, probably what would come out and fly in your direction, considering he just fed the men's hockey team McDonald's again, because that's all he eats, except for when he goes for the crispy KFC wings for breakfast. But no, he's accusing Democrats. I mean, just all of the numbers there. First of all, we had a bigger audience than he had for his State of the Union, and I'm not kidding. Between all of us who were out there streaming it and everybody watching and all that, so we had a bigger crowd, and we were one of three. MoveOn.org was holding one on the out in the Capitol outdoors, which I don't know why they did that, but a lot of people showed up. I think Katie Fang was at MoveOn's, and Joyce Vance and some folks too, and then Rick Wilson, who we were supposed to have today, but had a last minute thing come up. We'll get him on soon. Did something with the Lincoln folks and some of the folks we know from back in the earlier days of blogging and stuff. I think Joe Sudbay was on with him, who I remember from America Blog. I think he still does some radio stuff, and a few other folks. So they did one too. So there were a number of these. So Trump had the lowest rated State of the Union ever. And remember, we're growing as a population.
And the clips from Trump, I mean, even for people who just decided I'm not going to tune in, but if people watch the evening news or cable news, some of the few clips that they might have caught were Donald Trump dumping on the idea of affordability. And again, suggesting that it's a hoax or Democrats came up with affordability. And you know what? Actually, even for people who are not paying close attention to politics, even for people who may have voted for Trump or may not, but they don't really care that much, I guarantee everybody, except for the top 1%, everybody cares right now about affordability. So politically, my view was that an hour and 45 minutes of a bizarre speech, but that even the few sound bites that I got reduced to, I think was really bad politically for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. And just the demeanor, the look. Hey, look who we got here.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, awesome. How you
doing? I don't know where I was like,
good to see you both.
I was just about to make a joke and say, we may be, not that I'm getting insecure here. I think, first of all, even if I'm not that great, David won an Emmy and is very important.
They're both fantastic.
But I would have been like, this is the first time maybe a show has been stood up by two guests. It'd be like, no, Rick Wilson had something come up last minute. I totally understand. I'm glad you didn't, Cosm. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure to spend time with you guys. How are you guys?
Well,
we're talking State of the Union. I'll kick it over to you, Cosm. What'd you make of the week?
Yeah, tell us.
This was a deranged man living in an alternate reality, and it's shocking to me how many people are just taking what he's saying as gospel. I think they are looking at their own bank accounts, looking at their farms, 46% increase in bankruptcies, looking at the fact that with the exception of eggs, every other grocery item is more expensive. Even his gas prices were made up. I mean,
and the eggs thing is only because he lays a lot of eggs.
There you go.
And so he's been able to. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I love it. And so it's just shocking to me. It's this idea of white narcissism is what we're calling it nowadays. That the Southern strategy that you convince poor white people that, hey, at least you're not black or brown. You may be poor, but at least you're not black or brown. The fact that policy is still working now is just shocking to me. And I will say this: I think the one silver lining. I heard you guys talking earlier about Tester and these kinds of folks who are fantastic in rural parts of the country. We're seeing a methodology develop. I was talking to the folks over at Graham Plattner's campaign about this new poll that just came out. Shows him up 40 points on Janet Mills and up 10 points on Susan Collins. And that, I mean, that doesn't happen by accident. That's, and
Can
Maine
I
is
say,
a rural
and
state.
I want to jump in there because I
Yeah.
think this feels like something important to say at this moment, which is, because I know he got into trouble at some point because
Yeah.
he had, it wasn't a Nazi symbol, but it was an anti-Semitic symbol of sorts and whatever. And this is where I say my thing, that I am consistent with everybody on this. But I don't, because when people do this, in any community, which is obviously there are things where people quite purposely are saying, constantly spewing garbage, and we should want them out of the public sphere. But people like this, like Graham Plattner, he fought in a war for us. He came back admittedly with PTSD and confused. And honestly, a man like that who can make a mistake like that, if we cannot forgive people and say it's who you are now, I mean, that's why Joe Walsh is a good friend, because he truly, he's not somebody grifting off of this. He's lost money off it. He's changed. And so I just want to say, this is why we need to be here, because we need to support the best candidates who are going to fight for the most populist agenda, who are not going to just vote for Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries. And so I love, honestly, I love hearing that. Just to,
and for the record, Graham Plattner, this tattoo, he had it removed.
Right.
Yes, he had it once upon a time and then realized, okay, maybe this was not such a good idea. And so he's got it removed. It's not like he's trying to cover it up or hide it, which is the MO these days for a lot of Republicans.
Look, I'll say quickly, I went to it because I think it's very relevant. Sorry, I'm blocking Cosm's face with his own. So your bio instead of your face, Cosm.
It's great. It's better looking that way.
But I mean, there's a point where as a kid in like the late 70s, maybe like I was really a couple years, 4 or 5. That's mid to late 70s, went to a Hebrew school. Probably the last time I did anything that was actually religious. And they, I will just say out loud, taught me some pretty bad things about Muslims. Not all the time. I'm not saying that was their 100% agenda. Just let's teach them total propaganda against the Muslims. No, but there was stuff mixed in there that I grew out of it as an adult, and I learned and said, hey, I'm hanging out with Cosm here. I was hanging out with Waj the other night. I hang out with Dean Abdallah, and we can even disagree on some things. And, obviously not big. We're not going to be like, oh, well, it's okay to just kill mass groups of people or whatever. But we may disagree on some of the intricacies of some things. And yet we still get along. And that's the key to all this. That's what I saw at this event the other night. And you bring up Graham Plattner, and that's why it's who you are now. It's what makes you that we're all fighting for. If somebody held that against me because I probably said some stupid thing that was taught to me when I was 5 years old. I mean, I know Graham Plattner was older than that, but I'm just saying, do we want to do that, or do we want to be with the folks?
I agree with you. And look, everyone should come to their own conclusion. I've spoken to him directly and asked him directly, what's the story behind this? And he swears by it that he genuinely didn't realized that's what it was, and he went through several checks within the army, physicals, nobody brought it up, and the second somebody did, he didn't argue with it. He said, let's just get rid of it. And I believe him. And for what it's worth, I've been to Maine. I did this crazy thing where I said, let me just ask random Mainers what they think about this. I talked to 13 different people. 12 of them said, well, one person said, I have no opinion. The other 12 said, I don't care.
2 of them answered in French. At least 3 of them had Canadian accents and said,
"Yeah, right."
Boot.
I was in Montreal actually. No, but
I'll say quickly, like Mainers are awesome. I worked on a campaign and lived up there for about 3-4 months in Portland in the winter, and I love Maine. So
it's great. I can't wait to go back. But I had people say to me, I'm a Mills supporter, and honestly, this is not a non-issue to me. Let's talk about the things that actually matter. And I think so. The point I was trying to make is that the reason why he's resonating so well in the rural parts of our country is because he's running on this message of affordability, of actually leading by example, not taking corporate money, not bending the knee to Chuck Schumer. And he's bringing this genuine authenticity to him, where people are like, yeah, we all did stupid stuff as kids. He didn't go and, accidentally mass murder people. He didn't advocate for genocide. He did some stupid
He's
stuff.
not in the Epstein files.
He's not in the Epstein files, which shouldn't be a very high bar, but here we are right now. And
it is if
people are responding. And so I think that's a lesson that we need to resonate with, because you can look pretty closely at his platform and someone like Zoran Mamdani. two very different places, New York City and Maine, and you see a lot of alignment on the main issues, on the primary issues. So don't tell me that Mamdani only won because it's New York City. He won because he ran on affordability and he was authentic. He backed it up with his actions. That's something that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer just aren't willing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've had two experiences so far this year, and I'm lucky, that I'm in a position where, this won't destroy me. But one of them where a prescription that I was going to get was quadrupled from December to January, and another one where, and thankfully we got rid of this, but I can only imagine how somebody else would have reacted who was looking at medical bankruptcy or something, because even we looked at this number. We're like, I've got charged for this operation of my elbow. It already was, $900 or something with insurance. And then I get this bill for $6,000 and I almost have a heart attack, but I'm like, if worst case scenario, we can pay this if we have to. But, they told me at the hospital, they're like, we literally have a team here to dispute this, because they try to do this kind of crap all the time. And we all the time get rid of these things. But my point is, part of what we're paying for in our healthcare system is for them to have a team at the hospital to stop insurance companies. So when someone like Plattner comes along, or other people who never said before, who think our healthcare system is okay. Now, if you're not calling for, it can be multi-party, it can be single payer, it can be, but if you're not calling for absolute 100% national insurance at this point, I'm not listening anymore.
100%.
If you're not calling for paid family
100%.
and medical leave, I'm not listening anymore. And
100%.
then on some of the procedural shit, I'm sorry, but when Janet Mills, when she lost me, and I knew first of all, she's going to support Schumer. But second of all, she said, imagine in the face of all of this being like, I'm not sure we should get rid of the filibuster. I'm like, you're still not with us on that?
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
it's absurd.
What is wrong with you? What are you looking at?
Going back to your earlier point about healthcare, Cliff, and your experience, I don't know if you remember the story just last February in Wisconsin. Young 24-year-old kid, Cole Klipschneck, I think was his name. His asthma medication jumped $500 from 1 week to the next. He couldn't afford it, had an asthma attack, and died. Nonsensical.
And we don't talk about it that way. As I said earlier, I was talking about with the Epstein files, some of and others where Tony Gonzalez's, staffer. These are people, these are human beings, and they are now dead. They will never get to live the lives that they should have been able to live. And it was because of evil policy choices from people that don't care, that just care about profits.
That's exactly right. And I tell folks that the filibuster is one that I think people have this infatuation with, not realizing that it was enacted. First of all, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in any amendments. It's not in any state or federal legislature. It is an arbitrary Senate rule established to restrict and slow down civil rights legislation. That's the sole reason why it exists. That's it. And Dr. King talked about this extensively as well. And people often bring up, well, if we get rid of the filibuster, then Republicans take control. How do you know that they won't get rid of it as well? Let them. The point that I'm trying to get across right now is that without the filibuster, what would we have? We would have universal health care. We would have codified Roe. We would have a living wage. We would have the Voting Rights Act. We would have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We would end Citizens United. We would get rid of lobbying. We would get rid of stock trading. I mean, the list.
Remember when Obama had 59 or 60 even senators at one point, but some of them were like Kent Conrad and Ben Nelson. So he would have been able to get over 50 votes without a filibuster. And Nancy Pelosi passed all of that legislation, and then that Senate could never take it up. And that's why there was this big populist.
We would have a Supreme Court that isn't bending the knee to Trump on every single thing except one every now and then. I mean, imagine a Supreme Court that actually protects Roe v. Wade. Imagine a Congress that could codify reproductive health access. I mean, and this is the point that if we are serious about protecting our democracy and having a functioning democratic republic, then that doesn't happen when you have a filibuster where the minority of Americans can continue to impose their will on the vast majority of Americans. That's not the point of a republic. The republic means that the majority can't oppress the minority. This is the opposite. This is the minority oppressing the majority. It makes no logical sense whatsoever.
Congressman, you mentioned the polls earlier, and there's all kinds of polling that's out now. Democrats are up 5 or 6 points on the congressional generic ballot. Donald Trump's approval rating is underwater by 24 points. There are projections that Democrats may stand to gain up to 40 seats in the House. if they win a race like Texas Senate, I mean, there's a chance that they take control of the U.S. Senate. Do you believe these polls? And what is it that Democrats need to do to avoid snatching defeat from the jaws of victory?
Which is something we're very good at.
Democrats are good at.
On that point, that's the old joke, right? That if a genie gave Democrats 3 wishes, the Democrat would negotiate down to 1 and then wish for something they think Republicans would like. That's what we're seeing happen repeatedly. It's just so true.
I've never heard that before, and yet so
here
true.
we are, right? No, I think the polls are a good snapshot, but I don't rely on them or believe in them. If you follow the polls, Zoran Mamdani should not be sitting in the mayoral seat right now because he was at 1% with like 3 months before the primary election. So I think the polls are a good snapshot, but we need to sprint through the finish line. If we're 50 points ahead, we sprint through the finish line. I'm a marathoner, and one thing they teach you in running is you never look back. You never look back to check how far behind the guys behind you. You just keep running your ass off until you cross that tape, and then we can look back. And so I think they're good.
I would have been looking back like 2 miles in once I collapsed, but otherwise.
And then in terms of how do we make sure we don't snatch victory from the jaw or defeat from the jaws of victory. Look, I think we're seeing some good models of what is successful across the country. And the one message that continues to resonate, and I'll keep harping on this, is a message of affordability and a message that your policies are going to back that up. Here in Illinois, for example, we've got a heated Senate primary. It's a crowded field, but there's 3 main candidates: Raja Krishnamurthy, Juliana Stratton, and Robin Kelly. Krishnamurthy's got absurd amounts of money: $28 million, APAC funding, crypto funding.
Is Kelly the incumbent there?
It's an open seat. Dick Durbin is retiring. And, yeah, it's an open seat.
Robin thank God for that, by the way.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, but look, Robin Kelly's great.
He makes Schumer look tough. Okay,
Juliana Stratton, though, is the most viable candidate to defeat Raja. And the polling shows that she's picking up momentum. And the reason why I think people are getting behind her is because, by and large, she has people funded. By and large, her policies actually reflect the moment. While Raja is praising ICE and voting with Republicans to thank ICE, she's calling to abolish ICE because she's realizing that's what the moment calls for. She's unapologetic about it. She's calling for universal health care as a human right. And so that it's the policies. It's communicate the policies and then have your actual strategy back those up. It can't just be words. It's got to be actions. And this is where I think people like Graham Plattner, like Zoran Mamdani, like Juliana Stratton, and there's plenty of other examples. Salam Bhatti running for Congress in Virginia's 1st District, of people who are leading by example. They're giving us a roadmap and blueprint. We know it works, and let's go after it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you look at some, and because I've been paying close attention, and look, some of these people inevitably, I love them, but there's a good chance they end up supporting Schumer because he's gotten behind their candidacies. The great thing I know is even someone like Sherrod Brown here, if he were to support Schumer because Schumer's gotten behind him because he knows he's the one who can win here, Sherrod Brown won't let Schumer tell him what to vote for on economic issues and will break with the party and vote economically populist and everything. But Zach Wall's the one who's the outsider in Iowa. Again, I don't believe any few polls. I just believe when I see lots of them, and obviously when we see elections like that one in Texas or in Miami, they tell you something. He's way up, and he's the one taking on. Mallory McMorrow is really popular up in and she's been a people's candidate. I know there's 2 of them up there, which makes it tougher. Saeed, too. But the ones, these insiders they've picked wherever there can be somebody who can be an outsider. Our term used to be during the Bush years with some of us, more and better Democrats. And so where we can make them better, we make them better. When we can add more, and yes, they won't be perfect. Because I don't know if, Peltola up in Alaska will support Schumer. She might. He's supporting her right now. But man, if we could win a Senate seat, and we can, because Alaska actually has been steadily getting closer each election. I mean, imagine taking that seat. Imagine taking the one in Iowa. Imagine, taking the one in Texas. And obviously, I don't want to get involved in the brouhaha right now. I like them both. I just want one of them to come out strong and be populist and kick Republicans' butts and win.
Well, and to that point, I think, look, if Ken Paxton is the nominee, if he beats Cornyn, I think all bets are off. I think either Tallarico or Crockett has a great chance if Paxton's the nominee for the Republicans in Texas.
Right. And then, in Florida, I'm going to know that Cosm's not going to be a huge fan of Vindman on certain issues. And I don't agree with him on certain issues either, but I don't know if he's the best one down there, but he has the name recognition and took on Trump. If it's somebody else, I think Florida is winnable too. Again, these are, I mean, like when you win a mayor's race in largely Cuban, not overall, but a large Cuban population that has been Republican since, Batista, and you win by 20 points and you hadn't won that mayor's race in 30 years. Like that tells you something's up in Florida, and that's winnable too. So Roy Cooper in North Carolina, again, he may end up being a little milquetoast. He may end up being a Schumer guy, but that's why more and better. You get more firebrands in there. You get a bigger majority, and you added a couple other folks that maybe won't be, where we want them to be as far as we want them to be. As long as they're not Fetterman, I'm okay.
Yeah, I call it progressivism and pragmatism, right? We like progressive ideas, but let's be pragmatic in those places. And in Florida, I'm supporting Angie Nixon. The other candidate who I'm really excited about in Maine is Nirav Shah running for governor. It's a 5-way primary, and he's leading by 7-8 points in the primary. I mean, look, as a South Asian myself, I would never have thought that a South Asian running in Maine would be leading a field of pretty, homogenous candidates. And then
we have a South Asian for mayor in my city here. You know that?
That's right. You guys do. Yeah, in Cincinnati.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I think it's a great thing. Again, for those of us who have this crazy idea that getting a diversity of experiences is a good thing, not just because we believe in equality, but I like to actually learn from other people who've had different life experience. I think we all learn from each other, and that's how we get better. If you're strong enough to do that, you're not so insecure in your manhood or your whatever then we all. So I'm glad. I think we've been electing a lot more Asian candidates. Sort of, Andy Kim in New Jersey's terrific. Like we've got more members of Congress, and I'm glad that we're adding folks rather than detracting.
I wanted to ask you guys about the State of the Union. Did you get a vibe from him? I've never seen a president give out so many medals of honor or Purple Heart awards in the State of the Union. I mean, these are typically White House events. And do you see a correlation or a connection between that and the war drums for Iran? That I feel like is trying to move the Overton window and normalize celebrating war heroes, bring back World War II heroes who are heroes. I mean, they fought Nazis. That's great. Yeah. But what does that have to do with the State of the Union right now when we can't afford groceries? That was a part.
Or to me, bombing Iran. I don't think World War II. There are great reasons to go to war, and in the end, it wasn't really left up to us, was it? So I mean, no. I mean, I think that I see some of it in that.
Yeah.
I also see some of it in and I'll let you go quick, and because I know you have to go soon, David. I just see some of it in desperation. In that he knows he's at 30. Another poll came out. Was it CNN had him at 36%. It was the lowest rated State of the Union ever, the most opposition party members ever boycotted. I mean, he broke all these records, none of which were good. He had the longest one ever. Jesus Christ, if you wanted to fall asleep, 2 hours of that. But and then there were all these opposition groups like what we had. I'm sorry. As I said earlier, we had Robert De Niro walk into a room and get up and speak.
I mean, Cosmo, I think it's a great point, though. It is a great point about Iran. I think Donald Trump he would love for Iran to capitulate at some point, and so that he could say, oh, yes, all this pressure worked and sending all these military assets, and Iran finally got the message. And I feel like he keeps trying to ratchet that up with all of the threats that he's making, in the hopes that Iran is finally going to sort of come around. I think he knows, or he's been told, that obviously if we go to war with Iran, the Republican Party will shatter. I mean, it'll split. But my sense about the State of the Union with that and the highlighting and all the medals that he gave out and all the awards, I felt like that was overshadowed by what I call the horror porn, and that is he went into such graphic detail about the women who have been killed.
This is what I've said, David. Quickly, I think he's got bloodlust, and there's something he enjoys about that.
And I was watching this with my wife, and we were sitting there thinking, these poor, even Erica Kirk. I mean, she's still grieving. For Donald Trump to be taking an advantage, to be exploiting these raw emotions of people who have suffered. To me, that overshadowed everything that was going on with the other, I like to call them the Skutniks, who are in the gallery. So it was just, there was something, Cliff, to your point. I mean, the bloodlust that Donald Trump has and the graphic details
and the
exploitation of people's raw emotions, to me, was really off-putting.
Very well said. And I said this when I was live streaming, that I find it insufferable when politicians use children as political footballs. Last year, there's this like 8-year-old black kid who had brain cancer, and he propped him up as saving his life. Meanwhile, he was literally cutting funding for child cancer research. And look, past presidents, whether it was Bush or Clinton or Obama, you go back and watch their State of the Unions, when they referred to children, it was when they were talking about some systemic injustice that they were trying to, like, hey, here's a child who is suffering a systemic injustice. We funded schools, or we built these, highways, or we added computers, and now children like this can do better. What Trump is doing is targeting marginalized communities, pitting children against other marginalized communities, say, hey, these are the bad people out there, and I alone can protect you. It's the common, fascist autocrat, nativist nationalist approach to it. And it's extraordinary.
Get them to look away from the billionaires by looking at somebody who's a group that's easy to demonize.
And by the way, I know Qasim, you and Cliff know this, but for our audience, the Skutnik references to Ronald Reagan. I mean, the whole idea of having guests in the gallery in the 1980s, there was the Florida crash where a plane crashed into the 14th Street Bridge. And there was a guy who I think he worked for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, named Lenny Skutnik. And he literally dove into the water to try to rescue people. And, he was seriously injured himself. And I think he got one or two people. Well, the State of the Union that Ronald Reagan had, he then had Skutnik as a guest in the box to say, this is the kind of government bureaucrat, the selfless American that we all aspire to. We've gone from that to, again, to your point, taking advantage of the suffering of women and children and even men and exploiting their emotions.
And Republicans inviting like Ted Nugent. And I mean, it's ridiculous now. It's not about.
You mean you weren't inspired by Rush Limbaugh getting the what was it? The Medal of what?
The only thing I'm inspired by with Rush Limbaugh is the fact that he's dead. I'm sorry, that's an evil joke, and I'll go there with gallows humor with him.
And if I was that hockey goalie who won us the gold medal, I would have said, I'm not taking your Presidential Medal of Freedom because you gave it to Rush Limbaugh.
I know.
I don't want that cheap award.
There you go. I
gotta run. I gotta run and go deal with the kids. Qasim, great to see you.
Do you want to hang for a few minutes, Qasim?
Yeah, I'm around, buddy. I'm around. David, great seeing you.
David, thanks so much, buddy.
See you guys.
All right, take care, man. Thank you for being here. I just to get a few more of your thoughts on, because I want to know, were you at? I mean, because I mentioned before there were 3 of these types of events that were sort of counter SOTU programming. Yeah. And what I'd said, I don't know if you heard earlier, if you or not, but to me, one of the things that was so amazing, but the one I was at was the one that Miles Taylor and Tara McGowan and a few other folks threw, was we had this just group of people. And I mean, again, I mentioned Waj Ali before, but Brian Karam and, Kurt Bardella. And I mean, they're just, we had Ellie Leonard there, was awesome. There are just so many terrific people there. And we were all united. We all were on the, that's why I purposely, the whole frog, sort of thing that people that I mentioned, a group of frogs is an army. And that's what you call them, like a herd. You call them an army. Cool. Isn't that cool? And that's what it felt like, no, not like we're taking out our machine guns army, but an army of us who are like, no, you know what I mean? This is where we stand here and we say no more. And this is where, I can't predict what'll happen in the end, but I can predict I'll go down fighting. We're not letting this be our country. I'm not letting my kids grow up in this,
Yeah. No,
where were you? What were you? I meant to ask you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's Ramadan, so I try to not travel. I was invited to several of these, and I wanted to go, but it's the month of fasting, and I like to stay at home as much as I can, because when you are traveling, you're not allowed to fast, and you got to make them up later. It's a whole thing. But
that's why Waj was there, and a few of us, were just like, when I said to him, I'm just like, he's fasting, and I was just like, see. You guys don't get the easy way. For us Jews, like, we just have to do it one day. I don't know what you guys are doing with this whole 30, 40 day thing.
But yours is 24 hours though, isn't it?
It is. So it's a tough one. Yeah. It's a tough day.
I mean, 24 hours is no joke. I mean, for us, the longest it gets in the summer is like 17 and a half hours, which day after day it adds up. But like right now, it's like 12 hours. You basically have breakfast, skip lunch, have dinner. So it's more than just staying hungry. But I
admire all of you with the strength of just purpose.
Let me tell you, I've got plenty of my non-Muslim friends fasting with me just because they see how much it helps. Like I had tea last night for the first time, like caffeinated tea last night for the first time. And I felt like a superhero because it was my first time having caffeine in over a week. It's amazing how much your body just adjusts so quickly
Yup.
to this kind of stuff. I'm losing some extra pounds. I'm getting back into shape. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend it.
All right, then I
Um,
may start. You're gonna have to give me. Is it sunrise to
yeah, I'll
sunset
send you
or
the calendar. I'll text you
send
the
me a
calendar.
calendar, and I will try to because did that a few times. Again, not because I'm religious for Yom Kippur, just sort of to prove to myself I
Yeah,
could. Right, like
yeah.
you want to see if you have the strength and be like. So I would do it because I feel like you do. You eat healthier after that. You
You
appreciate
absolutely do.
good foods more than
The last thing you want after being hungry all day is crappy food. Like you get like nice home cooked food, something that's nutritious, something that isn't just empty calories. And all the physiological studies, by the way, I know we're getting off subject, but just to kind of
no.
talk
But
about
this
this
is
for a
like
second.
this is an all round show, and this is interesting.
All the studies show that fasting reduces cancer rates. It increases your blood flow. It reduces heart disease. It improves your mental health. It decreases your suicide risk. It decreases depression. I mean, there's so many factors
I
that go
bet.
into it. And you can do it for 30 days every year. It becomes an actual like, not, I don't want to say forced in the way that it's compulsive, but you put yourself through this, rigor, and you just come out stronger. The word Ramadan comes from an Arabic word that actually means to burn away, to burn away bad habits, to burn away impurities. And so when you engage in Ramadan, you're burning away. It's not just the excess fat, but it's
Right.
also just the bad habits or the inefficiencies in life. And I tell you, every month I finish it, I end it, grateful that I had a chance. I'm sorry to see it go, but it really does help with my mental health
Well,
and my
and I think
overall
this is
health.
important for people because again, a lot of folks are struggling, with various. First of all, a lot of people to begin with have mental health challenges,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, you know, for those of us who have any empathy or any sense of right and wrong and honesty, and watching the things we've watched in right in our faces in a shocking way, I think was difficult. So I mean, I always had. I remember because I played sports when I was younger or whatever. I see Cynthia here, right? Says I don't eat after 4, that is the way of doing it. I always had a rule that I didn't because sometimes we eat dinner at 7, right, with my family. So I wasn't gonna be like, I'm not having your dinner, mom. But I always have had a rule, except for if I go out with friends, different, whatever, where I don't eat after 8
Yeah.
because your body is at its most lethargic then.
Yep.
You're most likely to so I think it's healthier. So I never eat after 8 when I'm at home.
Smart.
I try to regulate the portions of what you eat, like here for lunch and things like that. I don't go and get all this extra, whatever. I just try to eat what I need to eat and I think honestly, I can't tell people like those two things and the fact that if you could get yourself, if you have the time, and I know not everybody has the same amount of time. When we get family and medical leave, maybe we'll be there.
Yes.
But if you can get to a gym or even at home,
Yeah.
I do these circuit workouts 4 times a week, and and then 1 or 2 other days do lighter things. And after this hour of that, I never feel better. I mean, the maybe what you get from if you get a runner's high from running a marathon,
Yeah.
what I feel after 60 seconds on, it could be machines, free weights, and
Yeah.
some of it is cardio. You go from station to station. It's like 60 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 60
Yep.
seconds on. And if you keep going the whole class with a few, 20 seconds, chugging some water and whatever, and you're doing it, you just, my mental health has helped so much.
It's
by
called the
that.
hope molecule. Yeah, it's called the hope molecule. Your body actually releases a natural endorphin that is proven to be more effective than antidepressants in helping
Wow.
lift you out of depression. Now, obviously, it's not the only thing. I mean, if you need therapy, get therapy. I mean, there's no
Of course.
restriction there, but there is a natural endorphin that develops. I am training for a marathon right now. It's April 12th. On Sunday, I did a 16-mile run while fasting. Wouldn't recommend that to most folks, but I felt
Be
fantastic.
careful. I know
Yes.
I know that you are, and I know that I'm being your mom, and I apologize. But 16, because you can't drink water even, right?
No water, no water.
So
no
I mean,
food.
16 miles and no water. Just we need you. You're doing. You're doing. We need democracy, and we lose you. That's like losing like 15, normal humans.
You're
So-
too kind. It's fortunately still freezing cold, so there wasn't too much sweating happening when I was running. It was still 20-some degrees.
That's right. You're in Chicago, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. Yeah, but see, that's kind of the point that I try to make is that fasting actually strengthens you. in beautiful ways, in powerful ways, and it becomes sustainable. But back to your question, so for the State of the Union, I stayed home and I live streamed it for the entire 107 minutes.
Wow. So you put yourself through that.
And
That's
fact
impressive.
checked, and I put an article that is fortunately going viral right now, just providing all the receipts and demonstrating how literally every single thing he said was like. Well, after it ended, I thought the only line that comes to mind is, you know, that scene at the end of Billy Madison when they're having the decathlon, and he asks about puppies or something, and he responds that what you just said is the most insanely idiotic thing I have ever heard in my entire life. At no point were you anywhere close to something that could be considered an answer. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having heard you, and may God have mercy on your soul. That's the only line that came to mind. I have it memorized.
That is hilarious. And so let's keep talking about it. So you watched it, you're thinking that, and the only reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I want to go to Substack and I want to find your article and I want to put it in the I want to put it in here for people to read because
I'll put it in our chat right now as well.
Oh, yep. And
let's
see. Come on, there we are. Is it no? You've got kudos to
2026 State of the Union fact check.
Okay, yeah, I saw the kudos to Al Green. I agree with that. Help Cosm with a men's health competition. That's here too.
Yeah, I am. This is a funny thing. I entered this as a joke because it's like this big muscular stuff thing, and there's like 100 some people that entered. I'm now in the top 5, which is
Are you serious?
Hilarious. Yeah, I'm now in the top 5. And they have this thing where you can vote for free, and I want people to vote for free, but then they also ask you for money. Don't give them any money, please don't.
Right.
But just vote for free, and the top 5 advance to the final round or something. And I'm there right now. I'm hanging on by a thread in 5th place, but it would be hilarious if scrawny old me won this competition. The winner gets on the cover of Muscle and Fitness and wins.
Dude, you got to get ready. You could make a big muscle.
Well, here's the thing. The winner gets on the cover and wins $20,000, which I've already committed to donating in full to charity. So I don't even care about the money. I would love to donate that money to charity. I just want to have the bragging rights of being the scrawny guy that I am and being on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. That'd be amazing.
Well, I think that would be the coolest thing ever. And we would share that. I think I put up the right link. I hope it was the right link. I tried to grab it quickly from your.
Just a couple of days ago. Yeah, so you'll find it.
I think that was it. Yeah. So that's awesome. I mean, again, it's like, do you sort of feel about yourself like you're lazy? Because I mean, the fact that you're not eating or drinking anything, training for a marathon, and getting up and fighting fascism every day, and everything else, and you've got like a creators company, and you're a lawyer, and do you ever say to yourself, maybe I should do more?
I do actually. I do say I should do more. And look, here's the thing. I was talking.
No, seriously, you're inspiring. So
no, thank you, man. I appreciate that, Cliff. Look, I'm fortunate to have an amazing wife, Aisha, and both my parents have passed in the last 3 years, and I think about them often. But I was talking to my son about this.
I'm sorry, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's part of life. I appreciate the empathy. But I was talking to my 17-year-old about this, that change the way you look at problems. And I don't mean like fundamental problems. Like if you're hungry, we need to get you food. I don't want a positive attitude doesn't make you less hungry, right? If you're dying of a disease, a positive attitude is not going to make you less dead. Like we need healthcare. But I'm talking about when we go through life, we run through obstacles. When we're trying to achieve something greater, we run into obstacles. And my whole mentality is that I'm fortunate to be in a position where this is my obstacle that I'm trying to solve. I'm trying to get healthcare access for my employees right now, and it's a bureaucratic nightmare. But I'm I'm grateful that I'm in a spot that I can actually get them healthcare as opposed to not having healthcare at all. And in a more blunt analogy, right? I'm at the end of my 16-mile run on Sunday, and I'm hurting those last 4 miles. I'm in pain, and I thought to myself, how fortunate am I to be in my 40s and to be in better shape than I was in my 30s and late 20s. And to be able to even do this. And guess what? Those last 4 miles ended up being my fastest 4 miles. And so
that's incredible.
So a lot of it is that.
Your brain, yeah. I mean, with me, I probably started these, it was about 7 years ago. There was a break in there when COVID happened, but
Yeah,
these circuit workouts and everything. And I was
that's
like,
right.
I'm in better shape in my 50s than I am, when in my 40s or 30s. And not that it's not bragging, it's that like I felt for me, it's exactly what you're saying. I'm lucky enough to have that. I'm lucky enough to have a great family, a supportive family. I'm lucky enough to be able to sit here and do this for a living and fight for what I believe in, and and so much else. And so it's the way I always try to look at it. Whenever something happens and I start feeling sorry for myself, and there've been with the way you lost your parents, there've been some challenges, with my mom's health, and I did lose my dad about a decade ago, and so there are things that are real life things. But when things happen where I feel like I'm feeling too sorry for myself, I remind myself of what so many people have to go through when they get
Yeah,
up. If so many people who, if they'd gotten that bill I'd gotten, like, I
yeah,
mean, the what they would have had to go through in terms of their fear
yep,
and everything else. They may not have had the ability to call and argue and do this and do that, know where to go
that's
or
right.
what to do. Um,
Right. That's exactly right.
we're lucky in the city I live in. I think it was a stat I read somewhere between 30 and 40% of kids go to sleep
Yeah.
hungry every night,
Yep.
which horrifies me.
Exactly
Um,
right.
so how can I feel bad about, my situation?
That's it. That's it.
I mean, we all obviously there's mental health challenges at a time where you can't control it, but you do your best to sort of remind yourself, I do, that we're lucky, and even most of the folks, hopefully you're here watching and listening, are lucky in we know that there are people out there, and they can be in any number of places across the globe too. It's not just here in America where they are being bombed, they are being starved, they are being, tortured, they're being, and so we have to be here to speak out for them and do what
Yep.
we can. And so, what you're doing is incredible, and yet at the same time, obviously it's what you should be doing, right?
Well,
It's right for you, and that's great.
it's living the dream, fighting the nightmare, and it's where we need to be. And look, I think every person has a role to play, a critical role to play. There's some folks who have a face for TV like you, and other folks who have a face for radio like me. And we try to
Oh,
play our roles as best as we can.
you have a
Um,
face for everything and a voice too, so you got it all, man.
and I mean, and I think that's where it's important for folks to kind of lean into who they are, and just figure out what is it that makes them tick, what is it that makes them function. And it is exhausting out there right now. This is not We're not meant to be able to be exposed to this much trauma on a daily basis. That's
No.
not what it was
The
supposed to be.
combo of how bad they are plus social media,
Yeah.
so that we see so much of it.
Yep.
There are positives to that, and that we see things we wouldn't see, and we can try to stop them and solve them. On the other side, though, with just the regular, even just some of the ICE stuff that you see regularly, if you're a decent human being, I don't see how that can't affect your mood in a way
Of
where
course.
you're horrified, you're sad, you're angry, I mean, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
all of them. But channel it into doing everything that you can do that's positive. Care about your mental health, as we just said. It is important to everybody. There's no, again, I did say like what I say to myself sometimes, but no matter how lucky any or all of us are, still take your mental health seriously and
Yeah.
understand that that's you.
Yeah.
And okay, others have other circumstances, but take care of yourself, because we need to all be, stay in this fight, but we also all need to, live lives that are emotionally satisfying or healthy. And
Yeah. Well said.
I
Yep.
guess it's
Very
got
well
away
said.
from politics a little bit, but it's connected to it,
It is
because the truth
connected.
is we wouldn't be here. I think it's sort of Trump is that thing where when all the other challenges hit you, and then you look at what's going on outside, you're like, oh my God, that too?
Yeah.
Like I have to fight that, a fight that we shouldn't have to fight,
Well, the goal is exhaustion, right? The goal is to get us to stop caring because we're exhausted, and that's why it's so important that you also take time to rest and take
Yep.
time to disconnect as well, because there's no way you can maintain this long term. You have to take breaks. It's critical.
Well, this has been perfect. Just so all of you out there know, Kazim and I agreed off air that we're going to try to check in monthly.
Yeah,
It's a Jew and a Muslim walk in a bar joke or something
love
like
it.
that. I
I
don't
love
know.
it.
but I think it's good of us. So we're going to try to do it. We won't have a set date, but we'll figure out ways to check in and see what's going on and what we can each share. I want to thank you so much for being here as our guest and
Always.
sharing all of this and fighting for what you fight for. Thanks to David Schuster, as always, for co-hosting. Thank you to this great audience for being here. Just remind folks that tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern will be Tequila Talk with Joe Walsh. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. I don't know how I'm going to do this after I was in DC for a few days and especially got, not many hours of sleep on Tuesday night. Probably a little more alcohol than I should have, but we're going to pull through tonight, folks. We're going to do this. So we're going to have fun actually and do our best while we're talking about some very serious topics. So be here at 6 p.m. Eastern. Just in general, thanks to everybody. Keep fighting. And we will, actually, I probably should make one more announcement because of the fact of the matter with, being able to have great folks like Cosm and others on, but sometimes the scheduling can be very difficult. As you heard with Cosm, I could try to call him. He might be running a marathon. He might be fighting against the Trump administration. He might, he might be not eating. We're going to move to a format, I think, where our amped up show is going to be on Wednesdays, and we're probably not going to do our Thursday one anymore at this regular time because I think it'll be instead we're going to because I've got 2 shows in a day now with the one with Joe Walsh. I think in the end. In the future, we're going to do stuff like, hey, Cosm and I are going to do 20 minutes or an hour or whatever it is and talk about this, or I'm going to join somebody else. David Schuster and I might just come on and analyze things. So that's the plan right now. You won't be getting less. You'll probably get more because I can't stop myself and I'll write more and I'll do more of these pop-up things. But I'll talk to everybody about it. But I think this will probably be our final Thursday one. So you can and you can say you were the last of them, Cosm. You helped us send it into the new era.
I killed it.
Whatever that is.
How about I launched it? There we go. Hey, thanks for having me on, Cliff. Always a
Thanks,
privilege
buddy.
and pleasure, man.
Take care, everybody. And as the sun sets slowly in the west, we bid you a fond farewell.